Hi, Mick Goedeken here again with Orthman Manufacturing. Another installment of what happened in the research farm in 2021. You think about things that we tried at the research farm, and one thing that I'm very passionate about is corn starter. Starter fertilizer on corn is in my mind one of the best things that we can do on the farm, one of the most profitable decisions that we can make year in and year out. And it's an argument. A lot of you guys will argue against it, and I'm going to give you some information to tell you why I think it needs to be there. Another thing that I'm pretty passionate about is nitrogen management. I think that we need to be better stewards every day and try to figure out how do we manage nitrogen better. And I always get questions about, well, what's it cost me if I plan on sidedressing this much and I cut this much out? And guys, I don't know the answers to that, but let's create a trial and figure it out. So that's exactly what we did at the Orthman Research Farm is we looked at our nitrogen management. Are we putting on the right amount of nitrogen? Are we hitting that goal? Nitrogen studies are very dynamic and very hard to do, but we tried to do one for you in 2021. We'll share those results in this video. So you think about starter fertilizer, and the goal of that starter fertilizer is just to get that plant up and going. And strip till it even makes more sense. All we're doing is putting that starter on until the root system can get down into the soil, moving not with moisture, but with temperature and gravity. That root system will move down. So we need to wait for that root system to hit those nutrients to really take off, for the plant to really take off. Well, in that meantime, we have a lot of things that can happen. That plant can incur a lot of stresses, and if we put a little bit of starter fertilizer in with it, we can actually help that plant out a lot. We can make that plant survive. We can gain some yields. Typically, we see a lot of 5 to 10 bushel yield advantages with a starter fertilizer year in and year out. Myself, I've actually tested starter fertilizers from the Rocky Mountains to the East Coast. Definitely have seen responses. A lot of guys say, well, I've got a high phosphate. I use a lot of manure. I don't need starter fertilizer. Trouble is the temperature of the environment. Phosphate availability in the soil doesn't occur till soil temperatures hit about 70 degrees. Well, we plant corn at 50 degrees. And so even starter works in high manure situations. Now, does starter work every year? Absolutely not. I never said that starter works every single year in and year out. I always like to say starter fertilizer really works at 8 to 9 times out of 10. And depending on the environment, you have a nice spring that's ideal. Use the word ideal, and you guys define that by your territory, but not too much moisture, not too much heat, not too much cold. That's the ideal environment that we would say we would like to have every time we plant corn crop. But I can tell you that when I plant corn, I don't know what's going to happen for the next 30 days. And that's about how long it's going to take for those roots to be able to reach those nutrients that I place below it. So if we can protect it in cold, wet environments, I think about a few years back, we started out with the phenomenal planting conditions. And then we hit the month of May, and all of a sudden the sun didn't shine. It was cold all the month of May, and those plants sat there and sat there and sat there and didn't do anything. That's a year that starter fertilizer paid off big time. So let's look at the starter we used at the Orthman Research Farm last year. We used 2 gallons of riser. It's a pure nutrient starter. 2 gallons of Altura. Altura is nutrients with a little bit of humic acid. Typically, we add growth regulators, we add humic acids, we add products that help promote root and shoot growth to starters. And that's perfectly fine. Everybody's got a little something they like better. We used 1 gallon of boost per acre. We used 1 quart per acre of pro zinc. So that's a little bit of nitrogen and zinc, a little bit of sulfur, and a little bit of zinc. That gives us a little bit of balance to our starter fertilizer. We also included two ounces of radiate per acre. That's an IBA, a cytokinin, and a kinetin. Those are all growth promoters. Those are things that are going to promote root and shoot growth. There's nothing wrong with them. They're great products. There's a lot of different products out there that can help promote root and shoot growth. That's perfectly fine. That's what we want to do. We want to get that plant started off. We want to get those roots to the nutrients sooner. So that's exactly what we want to do. Personally, this starter blend's a little bit of expensive for my taste. I say for $20 to $25, you should be able to put a starter on your corn, a little bit cheaper than that on soybeans. And that makes it a little easier to pay for it and get a return on investment. But this is the blend that we were utilizing at the research farm last year. So we simply, we planted 16 rows with a starter, 16 rows without a starter. So you think about what we provided with that starter. We provided 3.78 pounds of nitrogen. And you think about uptake, and it takes to get to V6, V4 to V8, it takes 12 to 31 pounds. To V8 is 31 pounds of nitrogen. Certainly, we only provided 3 here. We're not expecting it to carry the nitrogen load. What we are wanting to provide is the phosphate load. P2O5, it takes to get to V8, it takes about 6.7 pounds of phosphate. We applied 8.32 pounds. Potassium, it takes quite a bit. More, it takes 58 pounds to get to V8. We're expecting that soil to release some of that potassium, but we gave it a little sniff of potassium in that starter fertilizer. Sulfur, to get to V3, we need 1.8 pounds. We expect we're going to have some in that soil to get it there. We've applied 0.33 pounds. We're not utilizing a ton of sulfur at that time in the plant's biology, but if we have a little bit there to get it started, it really helps things out with photosynthesis. Zinc, we provided 0.5 pound of zinc. When we think about grain removal in 250 bushel corn crop, we remove about 0.32 pounds of zinc in the grain. So we applied more fertilizer and more zinc in the starter fertilizer than we actually need in the entire grain of the entire crop. So we're providing a lot of extra zinc there. And the reason we do that is phosphorus and zinc, they need to go into the plant together, and there's a relationship between the two, and they work together as they go into the plant, and they work very similarly on several different processes within the plant. And so that's why it's important to have a good balance of phosphorus and zinc in your starters. I think that personally, I don't think that 1034O is a starter because we're missing the sulfur and the zinc portion of that, especially. Plus, 1034O, it tends to be a dirty product. It's a commercial product stored in tanks that don't get cleaned out often as they should. It's a bulk fertilizer product. Where starters are developed, they're cleaner products. They're developed to not plug in the planter. 1034O will tend to plug in the planter a little bit more, and they're designed to provide the nutrients needed for that corn crop or that soybean crop to get going. So if we look at our results and our check, we had a phenomenal check of 306.1 bushel the acre. Can't complain about that. That's with our starter. We look without starter, we were 300.8, so call it 301 bushel, and 298.9 or 299 bushel corn. All phenomenal yields, can't complain about it. There is some difference. So you look at the first repetition with the no starter, for 5.3 bushel difference from the check. The second one, we're 7.2 bushel from the check. I always say that there's always 5 to 10 bushel yield difference with starter versus no starter, year in and year out. If we look at this, this matches up fairly well at a 5.3 and a 7.2. We look at, start digging into the numbers, and I said that this starter package was a little bit expensive. The starter package was $38.44. It's going to take a lot of bushels to pay for that. So if I look at this 5.3 bushel increase, we increased our revenue $27. We didn't pay for that $38 investment. We get to 7.2, we don't pay for that $38 investment. We only get $36 back. Now, had we put a $25 starter in there and gotten the same results, we would have had a huge return on investment. Not always are they going to give you a return on investment. Starters work, as I say, 8 to 9 years out of 10. That is the way that starters work. We didn't have a lot of stress this spring, but we still saw good yield results. Another thing that I would think about with the starter fertilizer, watch what you're paying for. Don't overpay for a starter fertilizer. We're just trying to get through that first 4 to 6 weeks of that plant's life. So $20 to $25 starter per acre, perfect. Run it all day long, every day. Next trial I want to talk about is our corn sidedress trial. Does varying the sidedress change yields? Are we managing our end properly? That's the whole idea behind this. And we utilize our Orthman cultivator as a sidedress rig. You can sidedress with Y drops. I think the closer we place those nutrients to the plants, the better we are. The better chance that we are of getting that nitrogen into that plant. So on June 14th, during our hilling operation, we sidedressed. We varied our nitrogen from 0 to 125%. So what does that mean? We went from 0 pounds of N to 97.5 pounds of N. That also varied our sulfur from 0 pounds of sulfur to 18.5 pounds of sulfur. So we're really looking at two things here, the nitrogen and the sulfur. Personally, I think the two belong together. We need that sulfur. In today's environment, we need to be applying sulfur to corn. So we're applying sulfur in our strip till, we're applying in our sidedress. Get enough sulfur out there to feed that plant through the season and not lose it. Sulfur moves a lot like nitrate in the soil. So we want to keep that in the system as late as we can to put that out there. So we look at our system, we had a total of 245 pounds of N. And so we're basically taking a third of that out, roughly a third. 97 pounds at the most is what we're taking out of the 245. So if we look at our sidedress application, we varied it from 0 gallons to 35 gallons. And then now we can look at some of our results that we collected during the season. In July, I went out and collected samples. I collected 10 leaves from each treatment 3 different times, took pictures of those leaves, calculated the leaf surface area, and then averaged those from each of the 2 replications in order to create a graph for you. The graph on the left with the green on it is the cubic centimeters of leaf surface area for each different treatment. So at our 0 gallons, we were at 736 cubic centimeters. We dropped down a little bit on average to 730 on 7 gallons. When we get to 14, we're at 769. 21 gallons, we're getting, so that's 75%. We're at 791. Here's our best leaf surface area index. And so we think the most surface area that we created in that leaf was 809 cubic centimeters. And then when we got to the 125% or the 35 gallon, we dropped back to that 802. So what I was thinking at this point in time, now you got to think about this, was in July, we're thinking, okay, we hit our target rate. Our target rate was the exact one that we should have. So when in July, we expect our yields to be the highest for our 28 gallon or 100% rate. Well, so the graph on the right is a demonstration. Same labels on the bottom, gallons per acre applied versus our yields. And this is averaged again across both reps. So we went from around 271, 272, clear up to 295 for an average across those two reps. But if you see, that's a fairly straight line, and our best yields were in fact at 125%. One thing that I would say that we saw is our tremendous grain filling season that we had in 2021 allowed that extra nitrogen to be utilized and pushed into the grain. Where in July, we didn't see that in the plant. The plant wasn't telling us, okay, we're going to see the highest yield here. It said our highest yield was at 100%. So what did we profit out of putting another 25% on in addition to our normal Sidedress? Well, we got another 3.5 bushel out of that. So you think 3.5 bushel, we increased our revenue $17.54. It cost us $8.76 to do that. We got a net revenue increase of $8.78. So that extra in this year paid for itself. Will it every year? Probably not. It depends on how much nitrogen loss we had prior to that Sidedress application. You think about this year, prior to that Sidedress, we didn't have a lot of stress, a lot of heavy rainfall events to move nitrogen out of the profile. But what happens if we cut that nitrogen? And you can see if we cut back 25%, we lose $1.33 an acre. If we cut back half of it, it's $42 an acre. So let's say somebody's wanting to be frugal in the growing season, says, yeah, I was planning on putting on 100 pounds of Sidedress. I'm going to only put on 50 pounds. It ain't going to cost me that much. I'm going to save, I'm going to save $17.52. I can do that. But what did you cost yourself in yield? You're 11.9 bushel less. You cost yourself $60 worth of yield. You lost $42.76 per acre. And as we cut back to 25%, we lose $55 an acre. We don't put Sidedress on at all. Oh, let's save $35 an acre. Let's just completely cut Sidedress. We'll lose 20 bushel, but that's no big deal. We decreased our revenue by $104 an acre. We saved ourselves $35 and cost us $69. It does, in my mind, that doesn't add up. So definitely don't cut your Sidedress back. That's what this trial shows us in 2021, and it would repeat itself. Adding to that Sidedress, does it always pay? Probably not. We could look at this year in, year out, and it's going to change with the factors of weather before and after the Sidedress application. Once again, I want to say thank you for taking the time to view our videos. Be safe out there and have a great day.